So my name is Govin Whittles, the host of the IMM Institute's Friday Flash Talk.
This is the platform where we hope to bring you insightful views on the latest marketing trends.
Brands are really applying it to their strategy.
Convenience and being closer to your customer.
Guests who are engaged in helping move the industry forward.
Welcome back to another installment of the IMM Institute's Friday Flash Talk. It's our platform to discuss the latest marketing trends and supply chain trends. And it's such a pleasure to be back with you in the middle of winter. The season has come, but the trends keep developing. And today we will continue the conversation with renowned experts. We try to bring you the people who are most plugged in, the best of the best, and those who are able to talk about the latest development in the world of marketing. My name is Govin Whittles. I am the host, and today it is my pleasure to introduce Candice Burgess-Look and Wendy Monkley to discuss AI in PR. That's artificial intelligence in public relations. We're balancing promise with possibility and responsibility. Look, this is a conversation that I know is a long time coming, especially considering some of the other trends that we've discussed on the IMM Friday Flash Talk. And I know that today we'll most likely thrash out the pros and cons, but leave you with tips that will help you use AI more effectively in your campaigns, but also maybe you could learn to be on the lookout for things that may not work well when it comes to using AI. It's such a pleasure to have both of you here. Wendy Monkley is a direct and digital marketing strategist and CEO of DC Lab, a digital marketing and content agency. She has over 30 years experience across corporate agency environments and helps brands transform their online presence and performance. Wendy tutors for the IMM Institute and speaks regularly on digital marketing trends and strategies. Wendy, welcome. She is our IMM graduate school specialist for today. Wendy's going to help us navigate this conversation as someone who's worked in the space for a while. And the guest speaker for today, our resident expert who'll guide us through the world of AI and PR, is Candice Burgess-Look. Candice, welcome. Candice is the co-founder and director of KOJ Communication, a strategic communications and PR firm working with B2B clients across Africa. Candice has over 20 years experience in PR, communication, and marketing. And she's worked with local and international household names such as Sharks Rugby, yes, Cricket South Africa, IFA Hotels and Resorts, Kellogg's SA, the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, MWeb, and more. Candice, welcome to the IMM Friday Flash Talk. So before we listen to Candice, I'd like to encourage you guys again to share this conversation on social media, on LinkedIn, on TikTok, on Facebook as well. We do read those LinkedIn comments. We really appreciate the reposts and how you keep the conversation going. I'm really excited for this, but Candice, it's over to you for now. Tell us about AI and PR and how to balance the promise of it with its responsibility.
Thanks, Gavin. Thanks for having me, and lovely to be here with you and Wendy. Well, that's just it, balancing the promise with, responsibility. I think that's a kind of a gray area at the moment globally. A lot of people aren't quite sure how to kind of get that balance right. I want to start with a wonderful quote, which is, AI is a technology which is likely to be as transformative to human history as was the Industrial Revolution. And I think, as we go through this conversation, that's such an important thing to remember, that the horse is bolted, right? So we're on track, and it's either you have to get on board or you're going to get left behind. Now, when it comes to our industry, the PR and marketing industry, I think there's still so much to be said for where we can go and how far we can take AI. I know there's a lot of concerns around the ethical use of AI and the governance of AI, but I think what we're not talking about, because obviously I listen to a lot of conversations around AI in our space, and what's missing for me in these conversations is we talk around it, right? But we don't dive into the nitty-gritty of it. And we talk about policy and we talk about ethics and we talk about should we be using it and how we should be using it. And so important. But I think as creative people at the crux, marketing and PR people are creatives. What we don't talk about is we're so afraid of losing our agency. We're so afraid of losing our creative voice. We're so afraid of losing our edge. You know, there's the talk about, oh, losing jobs, etc. But what I think we don't talk about is, oh, we're going to lose. It's the ego. It's the ego in the creatives, right? We're going to lose our voice. We're going to lose our agency. We're going to lose our creative edge. And I think that can't be further from the truth. I think in this discussion, I'd love, you know, towards the end of this discussion for everyone to go, oh, okay, I can still be creative and still harness these incredible tools. And the balance part of things for me really is, yes, balancing the responsibility, but also balancing our lives as humans who work in AI or humans who work in the PR and creative space. It's such an always on industry. There's so many deadlines we have to meet constantly. There's so much burnout at a rapid rate. I mean, it's July and we are already tired. Right? I mean, my hair normally looks a lot better. I normally don't have I'm tired, right? It's July. But I think that if we can harness AI in a responsible way in our specific industry, we can find that balance again as humans so that we can save time whilst also being our best creative selves. So, I mean, there's lots to unpack today, obviously, but for me in the PR space, I think what's really relevant is what tools should we be using? How should we be using it? How do we go over and above ChatGPT? Because obviously everyone's using ChatGPT. How do we go over and above it? And how do we as communicators find the sweet spot of navigating things like bias and misinformation while still holding on to our agency and our creative voice?
Well, I hope that we'll be able to answer those questions today. Wendy, what do you think about the potential that AI has in enhancing PR?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Candice, the thing that resonates most with me is how fast-paced everything is getting. And I think AI is actually making it worse. I think everybody is using these tools already. And we're almost our own worst enemies, where we're chasing our own tails. You know, we're creating faster outputs with this type of technology. But we actually, I think in doing so and making things faster and more efficient, we may be losing a bit of our creativity because we're not stepping back from things anymore. We're not taking the time to sort of just, you know, breathe and say, is this good work? And I think what we've got to be so careful of is not losing our edge of quality and creativity and our difference. And you speak about our voice. I absolutely agree. But it is such an enabler. So I think we've got to harness it, as you say. But I think the elements of control must come in there as well. How do we control it within our space so we don't lose our voice and edge? And the beautiful thing that we always create in this industry. You know, otherwise, we're all going to become just clones of each other, right?
100%.
And you know what we've come to always talk about on the IMM Friday Flash Talk is how important research is when it comes to marketing. And obviously AI has such tremendous potential when it comes to enhancing research. I'm not sure if it's being used to make marketing better in South Africa already. Is it potential or is it actually being used, Candice?
To make marketing better, I think the only thing that can make marketing better is the human, right? So I think when it comes to research, we tend to think of research as mundane. Like it's a laborious task. And I think that's where AI can step in to take away the mundane tasks for us to automate our tasks. But the challenge with AI, as most of you will already know, is that there's so much misinformation out there when it comes to the research, is that we have to still have the human in the loop. We have to still fact check everything. And what I'm finding as someone who runs a PR company is that a lot of the young PR professionals coming up into the industry, they aren't necessarily trained on how to use AI effectively, right? They aren't necessarily trained in. I often say to some of my junior staff, I say, gosh, I'm actually so lucky I came up in a time where I had to write everything myself. I had to be thrown into the deep end and I had to learn how to write. I had to learn how to create. And it would take me hours, but I have that great foundation now of how to write and how to create. So even when I'm still using chat or other AI tools, I still have, it's still quicker for me to edit and be creative and make it and help it to rather uplift the marketing and give the marketing a facelift, the end product a facelift, because I have that foundation. So the younger professionals coming up today, I think it's such a different world for them to navigate professionally, because they're coming up with AI and coming up with chat. I mean, the whole conversation around using ChatGPT for universities and assignments, and there's a whole nother story. So it's becoming such an intrinsic part of how young professionals are understanding the marketing environment. So in terms of your question around how can we use AI to enhance marketing, I think it's important that from the education phase already, we now have to teach and implement guardrails to the younger professionals so that they can understand that this is not the norm. The norm is not enter ChatGPT, spits out content, here's my creative. That's not the norm. It's an enabler. It's a tool. It's you need to still bring yourself to it. It's a marriage. It's a marriage of creativity. So I think we could talk for hours about how AI can uplift your creative, but you have to have that human in the loop. You have to remember that if you want to have real, authentic, beautiful work out there that you're proud of, if it's just AI, it's going to be generic. You have to have that human element. So I think it comes down to instilling that in the training phase already. Because in my company, we're starting to train our younger juniors coming in of how to keep themselves involved in the process every single step. Because right now it's so tempting just to step one and leave yourself out of all the other steps. But I think I've answered your question in a very roundabout way. But I think that human in the loop is so important.
Yeah, I think, Gavin, I could add to that. And Candice, I think it's about, if you only come into the industry starting to use AI tools from the get-go, and as you say, you haven't been through that sort of university of life where you do it all yourself, like us old school people, I think you miss your own potential, don't you? You don't know what you as the human are capable of without the AI tool. So I totally agree. You should expose students to that ability and skill set that they can develop for themselves before they can fully grasp how an AI can enable their own talent. And not just see it as a quick fix to deliver the job.
100%.
This is immediately becoming very concerning. I spent at least 5 years as a features writer at the Mail and Guardian, and I do creative writing almost every day, and I would never be able to respect any work that comes out of an AI machine. Creative work, at least. And I had hoped that this conversation would be about just using it for research, But now it begs the question whether are campaigns being written by AI?
Yes.
Is that happening in South Africa?
100% campaigns are being written by AI, 100%. And I think that's where it's going to get to the point where the audience itself, the end user, is going to be able to discern what's authentic and what's not authentic. And I mean, that's the power of PR, if I can use this analogy. I mean, I'm always explaining to clients and prospective clients, what's the difference between advertising and PR? Well, advertising is a one-way communication, right? Everyone's just talking at you, whereas PR is a third voice saying, hey, you need to listen to what this person has to say because they're credible. And I think the audiences can pick that up. Nobody likes to be sold to. And right now, I think we're going to get to a point where nobody likes to be AI'd to, because we can all pick up that this is so written by AI. This is so inauthentic. It doesn't sound like anything, that's original.
Okay, but maybe there's some potential there. So a big part of the conversation on the Flash Talk is authenticity as well, and keeping your brand original, but also making your brand relatable to the audience. So, do AI tools exist currently that are able to kind of find the seam that your brand is in and write according to your brand identity, and then have that be indistinguishable from what you would pay your marketing team to do?
Yes, there are tools like that actually. I was playing with one the other day. I landed up not pushing subscribe just because there was too many hoops, and it just made it very difficult, and it just got too complicated. So that's another discussion. But yes, so what happens, I mean, even ChatGPT. So if you'd use the premium version of ChatGPT, which most marketers are using, the subscription model, the paid version, the business model, you have your different folders and your different files, your different projects. And whenever you talk, if you're doing a campaign for brand X, you go into your brand X folder, and every piece of content that you are researching or brainstorming is done in that brand X folder. And what chat starts to understand is the kind of tone you like to use for that particular project. It starts to understand the tone that the audience is looking for. That's why it's so important, and I think this is where people are getting it wrong as well, as you have to know how to use the tool. So there's this whole thing out there about, oh, you have to be a good prompter. You have to know how to prompt. Not necessarily. You just need to know how to have a conversation, because the more you just have a general conversation with the tool. I've even named my ChatGPT. Her name's Kathy because she's Chatty Kathy. So I'm like, hey, Kathy, we're talking about Project X again today. I loved what you did last time, but I think that we weren't hitting the spot because, the audience is more interested in X, Y, and Z. And she then spits out stuff that is starting to sound what the brand sounds like, and B, she's starting to get to know what Candice likes. So that's why it's so important to, at the bottom of chat they have the thumbs up. Is this a good response? And a lot of people don't realize that. Don't use that lightly, because if you're saying yes, that's a good response, you're teaching chat. You're teaching, in my case, Kathy, that's how I like the content for this brand, and that's how I like to write. So yes, Gavin, to answer your question, there are tools like that where you can the AI can understand your specific brand tone. The problem is not the tool, it's the people using it. They don't necessarily understand how to train their own AI that they're paying for so that they can make their lives easier. They're just still treating it like a generic tool when it's really has so much more potential than that.
Sure. Wendy, do you hear that? Like, that sounds like one less employee to me.
Absolutely what Candice is saying. I call mine Casper, the friendly ghostwriter. So we have Casper also has different folders for different clients, and absolutely what you're saying. What we also find quite interesting is that Casper has bad days, and some days he just can't write. And we find that if you open more than one tab for Casper and you ask the same question, you will get 5 to 8 different answers depending how many tabs you opened within the same project file. So it's something that is learning, but sometimes it learns to its own detriment as well, and starts restricting the output because you've put too many guardrails in place, or given it too many brand guidelines, and then it stops losing creativity. So that human interaction with the tool and knowing how to have that conversation and how to keep your prompting fresh and innovative, and that's the human part that comes in to guide the output, is so critical, because if you solely rely on the chat tool, you're going to get terrible content. You're going to get, the output is awful. It's not something that I would just take and give on to a customer. Definitely not. So I would say the human interaction in that process is probably 80%. The 20% would be brainstorming, asking for reiterations of different ways to say things, maybe rephrasing something more succinctly, where And that saves you time because, it could be better, it could be sharper, it gives you several options on a topic, and it speeds up your process, but it shouldn't replace it, definitely not. And it's far from perfect, I can tell you that as well. But everyone's using it, Gavin. Everyone.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I'm learning. How do you balance that with the concern that you say people have that they don't want to be AI'd to?
They don't want to be AI too.
Yeah, it's like people respect content from people more than
Mm.
AI, especially the audience, right? They
Oh,
want it to feel like it comes from a person.
okay.
Do
Well,
you kind of have to change what comes out or
of
not
course.
take ideas?
Of course. So I have a fast rule in our company. There's no copy paste, right? So my younger professionals who are coming up and stuff, and we're training them, there's no copy paste ever. It's copy, paste into a Word document, and then you play. Now you play. That's where the skill comes in, and it's fun. And it does really cut down time because I think where AI is going to help us so much in this industry is it's such a fast-paced industry, especially if you're working if you're agency, right? If you're in-house, I haven't worked in-house. I've only ever worked in agency. That's why I look 10 years older than I am. But it's so fast-paced and there's so much output expected of you. But yeah, Gavin, to answer your question, every now and then the Kathy will get it 100%, but 95% of the time there's a lot of playing and there's a lot of editing. And that's where I mentioned earlier, you're bringing in that human element, that creative element. And the AI will never quite understand your brand like you do, or the client's brand like you do. They aren't in the boardroom having the discussions that you're having. So you're only giving ChatGPT half the story, but she's not in the boardroom. She's not on the telephone calls. So she doesn't understand everything. So it's very important that you do a lot of editing. To give an example, to write a social media post for one of our clients, we have a health tech client. They're actually an AI health tech client. And it's really, really high tech stuff, and there's a lot to it. It'll take, I'll put something into the engine. She'll give me something back. I'll go back again. I'll edit it. It'll take 2 hours to write one post, which might have taken 3 hours. Sometimes it'll take 1 hour, but there's still a lot of time being put into it. So yes, you have to edit, never copy and paste.
We're kind of talking about the input side, coming up with ideas. I saw a video that said AI is really good for helping to choose influencers, for helping to understand your audience, kind of like back end stuff. And then it reminded me that the judiciary in South Africa is currently reviewing how some of the papers are being filed, and some judges have made comments on it because there have been citations of judgments that never happened because the legal team would be using chat or another AI tool, and then it would be like it wouldn't exist at all. And I wondered whether marketing is experiencing the same kind of misleading stuff about the audience, or have you experienced any of that before, Candice?
Yes, so the industry term is known as hallucination. The AI hallucinates. Have you heard that word before?
Yeah, I have
Yeah,
actually.
so
Yeah.
the AI hallucinates, and what that means is where it doesn't know the answer, but it doesn't want to not know the answer. So it just gives you whatever it comes up with. That's why fact checking is so important. I find, I haven't had an instance where it's completely given me the biggest load of nonsense from a non-existent reference, but it has fudged numbers, especially when it comes to stats, and it's converted a 20% stat to like a 1 in 7,
Not
and it's completely wrong, completely fudged the numbers. And had I taken that as gold, I would have been in a lot of trouble because it wasn't correct. So you always have to fact check numbers, because also it's a lot of the information is quite stale. I think it's only been trained up to, I might be wrong, 2021. It might be a bit later now. Maybe Wendy, but it's not very current. So you'll find a lot of the latest sources that it cites are from 2020, 2019. But yes, that's definitely happening. And that's why, like we said, it's not a replacement, it's an enabler. There's still a lot of work for you as the human to do to get the output right.
Yeah, there is a deep research setting now on GPT where you can actually get up-to-date information, but it takes longer, where it actually searches the net for you. But I've got a very interesting story to share here on this hallucination thing. I wanted to test or play them off against each other, Gemini, DeepSeek, and ChatGPT. So I prompted an article, and I really pushed hard on this. I started with DeepSeek, and I said, no, this is boring. Let's try something more out there. You know, no, give me more. And I pushed very hard. And then I took that DeepSeek article and I put it into Gemini, and I asked Gemini to fact check it for me. And it was actually it was such a lovely, I can't remember the topic now because it was some time ago, but it was so exciting when I read this. I was so happy with it. And then Gemini pointed out to me that it was referencing an article that hadn't been written yet. It was in the future. And it turned out that it actually made up the whole story itself and gave me a reference for the future. So then I put it into ChatGPT and asked it to take the feedback from Gemini and actually rewrite the article, and it went back to boring. So it's quite interesting how the AI, it is there to please us. It's actually coded to make us happy. So if
you find that scary, Wendy?
Yes, I do. Because if you're feeling happy, you should be worried because maybe there is an hallucination inside that content. You know,
how
you got to
trustworthy is? Yeah, I mean, this is very interesting because I know a lot of students and marketing professionals will be keen to use AI, particularly after some of the tips you guys have given already. But I'm always a bit wary of it because I'm not certain whether human beings are putting accurate information or good information on the net, and that's the primary source of information that AI uses. So, as a marketer, Wendy, you go first. How reliable do you find AI research when you're doing your research before campaign?
I think, Governor, comes down to your process, and I'm sure Candice will support this. What we do is we first, we use it to tell us where to go look. So, and then we go and look at those sources ourselves. We establish whether or not they are credible sources, and then we re-prompt with those sources to create whatever it is we're looking to create. So the fact checking doesn't happen at the end. It actually happens before you create the output that you're looking for. That's what we do.
Candice, how do you approach AI in research?
Pretty much the same as Wendy. Like she said, I don't wait till the very end to then go and check everything. So something that I've learned that really helps is what a lot of people do is they put one prompt into chat and then they get a whole splurb back, and then but you should actually break it up into very bit by bit by bit by bit. So ask one little granular question, get that feedback. Okay, great, thank you. Where and when did this take place and why? And actually engage in it's a lot of work, but the more bit by bit you break it down, the more you're forcing the AI as well to give you better information. So because I break it down so granularly, instead of just giving it a 500-word brief and then it spits out 2 pages of nonsense, just break it down. I'm able to also then quickly go and fact check something bit by bit. And then if I'm not happy with what it's given me, I can go and prompt it further and say, but why are you saying that? Or where did you get that? Or I read this, or I'll put another link in and then it'll bring up more information. So the more granular you can break down your research and questions and prompts, the better output you're going to get.
And are you seeing, Candice, how would you compare the PR campaigns that you were doing before you started using AI tools and the ones you're doing now?
I'm actually, Gavin, to be honest with you, I wouldn't say there's too much of a difference. I would say I'm saving time. And what I would normally do is, you know, we work remotely and a lot of our staff are remote as well. So we don't always have the luxury of sitting around a table having those wonderful brainstormings and coffee and muffins like we used to back in the day where everyone's giving their ideas, you know. Sometimes there's connectivity issues. We're trying to all jump on a call and brainstorm a campaign. There's delays, etc. So sometimes if you just know you haven't got much time, you can brainstorm with the AI and it gives you the ideas quicker. It prompts things quicker. It's the same thing I would have done if I didn't have AI. I'd be using the internet, Googling, looking at past ideas, looking at past campaigns, looking at competitive, you know, what competitors are doing, etc. It would just take us longer. That's pretty much all. Then when it comes to actually proposing campaign ideas to clients, our pitch decks look a lot better because we're able to visually demonstrate what we're trying to convey. So when we put our pitch decks together, we used to have to go and find, I mean, I'm very visual. All us PR people are very visual. If we have a campaign we want to try and pitch to a client or sell a great idea concept, we have to go and look at past imagery that already exists on the internet that kind of sort of tells story, but not really, you know, we still have to talk it through. Whereas you can go to chat and say, look, this is what we want to do for this event, for this campaign. Generate me an image of the audience wearing these amazing headphones. They're in, you know, it looks like this, it looks like that for our pitch deck. So in order to sell our campaign and our concept, that's what I find so fun right now is the strategy side of things is so much fun. The other day I put a strategy together and I was like, oh, I can totally like, you know, explain this to the client. They can see our vision. There it is. Whereas before you had to go and look for old pictures or try and talk through what you want it to look like, what it's going to look like. So yeah, it's elevating things and it's saving time.
Yeah, no need to storyboard anymore
Exactly.
from my point of view. Wendy, I mean, are you noticing an improvement or a big difference?
Absolutely, Gavin. And I think mostly in the stuff you can automate, you know, the repetitive tasks that can be automated, that's where it's making a big difference. And yeah, speed of execution. But like I said earlier, be careful that doesn't bite you because just because you're going faster doesn't mean you should be. Just because you can go faster doesn't mean you should be. You have to have that creative review and quality check process in place, and that's a human process because you've got to pick up the hallucinations, you've got to fact check, you've got to do it in bite-sized chunks. So it's faster, yes, but your process shouldn't be shortcut. That's my bit of advice to everybody.
What about the clients? I suppose now we're getting into like the ethical and governance considerations of AI. Do you, first of all, do clients ask whether you've used AI on this campaign? And then secondly, do you disclose to a client? Do you think that that's necessary at all? I think that this is probably going to be for people who don't necessarily do B2B business. But I think that this might be controversial. Wendy, you could start.
You're picking on me, Gavin. I definitely say disclose, but you know what? You know why I'm laughing is because they're briefing us with AI. so
And then
we're
they say,
giving a
but
lot
don't
of
use AI.
Yeah, exactly. So for the clients, it's become easier as well for them to brief us. But that's okay because as long as they're happy with your end product and they know that it's quality and it's human driven and human controlled, otherwise they might as well just do it themselves, you know? It's like, so you got to add that value, and the value we as an agency or as an agency or as a PR agency, Candice, you can chip in as well. The value we add is our human touch and our authenticity. Otherwise, they wouldn't need us.
Candice, how do you approach the client when it comes
Well,
to
for
AI?
me, it's hard to say. It would be hard for me to go to a client and say, "Here's your social media calendar with your copy." We used AI because what does that mean? Because initially the post is not all written by AI. We may have used the AI as a thought starter or give us some ideas. What awareness days are coming up, what's a fun way to say this? Could you fix this sentence? Or for us, it's a launch pad. It's not the end result. So for us and our agency and the way we do things, we don't need to say to our clients, this was written by AI, because it wasn't 100% written by AI. So
I
I
think
don't know.
the opposite may be true, where you become more attractive as an agency if you tell the client that we're using the latest AI tools, and the product that you'll be getting, or the campaign that you'll be getting, you can expect to have a higher standard. Is that true though? Are we getting higher standards because of the offering?
Well, interestingly, the one of my clients is they're obviously AI driven, they're AI health tech. So they always speak to me saying, "Oh, just ask chat this, ask chat that." And Candice, have you got this version of this AI? Because this is a really good tool. So they are so forward thinking when it comes to AI, because they understand that the AI is not going to get it right. It needs the human to who understands the product and the service to close the loop, to finish the output. And I've actually found, yes, Gavin, to answer your question, I've actually found that a lot of clients are very open to new tools, and it's actually becoming a bit of a knowledge sharing community within our clients, and within agencies as well. Like, have you tried this tool? Have you tried that tool? And I think perhaps some clients might feel, like Wendy says, are all briefing in AI anyway, which is so funny and so ironic too. I actually think that some clients might feel more comfortable or safer knowing that there is an AI that's assisting the PR professional, because then they're training the AI to understand the voice, to get it right. It's not just being palmed off to a junior young professional who's not going to be able to, get it right away. So yeah, I think it's actually, in my case, my clients are quite open about AI. They're making suggestions on tools to use. Oh, we need to do this, but we can't afford budget for a voiceover. But I know that this AI does really great voiceover.
Yeah.
Fabulous. We just put together a wonderful social media video for a client with an AI voiceover. Wonderful. Save them costs. And they are very happy with it. They suggested the tool that they used previously. I think it's becoming more normalized.
It's to my detriment as well, because some of the work that we do is incredibly sensitive, and we have to reenact things that have happened, and usually we'd film it, and we like to film on location. Sometimes we can't. And lately we've seen that, the AI does reenactments pretty well. And the reference voices that we're getting out of AI are sounding a bit too good for us. And we're kind of
Yeah.
leaning into sounding a bit more authentic. I think that Google used a lot of AI voices for the text ads that are coming up on YouTube. And now I've seen a lot of the voiceover artists that are coming up, emerging voiceover artists, who kind of don't sound polished at all, sound authentically South African, are getting work again, because I think a decision has been made to make it realer. So it's scary. One thing I wanted to say, I only say that to say that this conversation is showing me that it's here. If you're not using it, you're probably behind the curve, but there is still a lot of space for humans. But I want to ask the question directly. I'll start with you, Wendy. What are the ethical and governance considerations when using AI in PR and marketing?
I think we passed the point where we need to hide that we are using it. So transparency is key. And I know Candice wants to speak to this as well. Being transparent, important. And I think fact-checking, making sure that those biases aren't creeping in, because it can. I mean, I think the Grok AI has been in the news of late for exactly those issues. And yeah, just keeping it professional, keeping it professional and not allowing the AI just to be on its own. It always comes back to that 80% human, you know. But Candice, maybe you can shed a bit more light on the ethics side.
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. 100% about not just handing it all over to the AI. And that's something I'm really passionate about, what I mentioned earlier about the young professionals coming up, is that we need to teach them that. They need to know that this is not the be end. You still, because when you come out of college and everything, you're like, oh, this is how we do things now. This is how we write a press release. Oh, we're just going to ask AI. That's not it at all. It's an enabler. And it's so important that to hold ourselves as agencies and PR professionals accountable is how we raise up the next generation in professionals in terms of ethically using AI and responsibly using AI. And I'll just give you an example as well. It's also using AI to write your emails and relying on AI to write your emails. Like for me, that is how are we going to inject creativity into our campaigns if we can't even write our own emails and use our own voice in emails? So I just think it comes back to, it starts with the training and having some kind of in terms of AI literacy in our organizations, and being responsible for championing AI literacy in our companies, internally and in agencies. And I think also understanding, you touched on it, Wendy, was the misinformation and the bias. Look, that's going to be a fact for a very long time. There's misinformation and bias as you walk outside your gate to the shop. There's misinformation and bias happening all the time. It's a reality. So it's important that people are always using that filter when they're reading information from AI, that is there a bias here? A lot of the data sets that the AI is trained on is Western-centric data sets as well. Not so much, there's not enough cultural relevance in the data that we're getting, misrepresentation, all of that stuff. And unfortunately, the truth is, in order to fix that problem in the AI, it's such a massive, heavy lift. It's going to take so long. There's so much data to fix misinformation and specifically bias, is such a heavy lift. So it's going to be a problem for a very long time. And it's important that all the young professionals coming up are trained on that and that they understand that. And those who have been professionals for a while now, but may have not really used AI, understand that going in. And then I think, also as an industry, we can band together. We can, get involved with associations like the South African AI Association, where we can all share our voice. Knowledge sharing is so important. It would be great from a legislation perspective and regulation perspective, where us communicators can be involved, so that, because a lot of the AI problems start from the product design point of things. It's when stuff's being developed and designed. That's where communicators need to be involved to say, hey, are you thinking about being, tone deafness here? Are you thinking about representation when you're designing your AI product, your tool? So I think that there's more that we could do in terms of being involved from the design phase and the development side of AI. But going
That's one
forward
of the
now,
that's one of the big criticisms of AI on the
yes.
continent in Africa, is that there are adoptive barriers. So it's not easy to teach the AI to understand the African context. And yet we are using it for African campaigns. But what's been your experience with it, Candice, when it comes to using AI developed in the Western Hemisphere and applying it to campaigns that we're using in South Africa or on the continent?
Well, definitely. So definitely the whole European Western centric comes through. I mean, just to take it a step back, Wendy, you've been in digital media. I mean, just go and look for stock imagery for a campaign.
Exactly.
It's so difficult to try and find African representation for stock imagery. And stock imagery's been around for decades, right? So now AI is completely still pretty, I mean, it's been around, but it's still a new concept in terms of us implementing it in our campaigns. So there's so much catch up. So to answer your question, Gavin, yes, I do struggle in the African context to find tools that are representative of our culture and our heritage. But what is encouraging is there's so much talent and innovation happening in the African continent, and there's a lot of there's a lot of investment being brought into Africa to develop African AI tools, specifically from a language perspective, because there's so many language barriers in the country and across the continent. So the AI doesn't understand the different languages. And because it's such a big problem, not just from us as communicators, but for broader things like education and health, etc., and AI tools that are working in those communities, it's so important that language is integrated into AI. And I believe it's the Gates Foundation who's just pumped, I think it's almost 2 million or something into Africa to help develop African language modeled AI tools. So there's a lot of hope. I think there's a lot of excitement. There's lots to come, and I don't think it's doom and gloom. There's problems, but I think we're going to get there. I think it's exciting.
How do you get past some of the barriers, Wendy, when it comes to the AI not understanding the African context?
I think that's where, again, the human element comes in. So you need the African humans to be Africanizing the content. But, and in your prompting, you've got to keep bringing it back. And my Casper, he's got a very short memory, probably because I don't have enough tokens. The tokens equals memory. And he keeps forgetting about the stuff I've told him about, tone and localizing content. And so you've got to constantly be feeding that in. Gavin, if I may, there's one other thing I thought of regarding the ethical side and this whole AI thing, and we're prompting every day. Everybody's prompting, and maybe this is another IMM Friday discussion. But the protection of confidential information, especially when we're dealing with client information, how much should we be putting into that prompt? How many attachments should we be attaching? Because let's not forget, these AI tools are connected to the bigger internet, and it would be interesting to get a perspective on that. Is it confidential once you've uploaded it and asked for whatever you've asked for? Or is it now open source for anybody else who's prompting on the other side of the world to access that information? So that's something to think about. Yeah, food for thought.
I mean, do you have that answer?
So,
no. Do you, Candice?
Not necessarily, but I do think that that's where the transparency with your client can become key. So
yes,
you can say to your client, look, we are using AI to assist us with creating content. Are you comfortable with us sharing these documents? Also use your discretion. You can see what's sensitive data and what's generic data, what's going to be available on their website. If it's the kind of, you can make that, use your discretion. If it's the kind of information that's going to be used in your posts and your websites and your blogs and your news articles, etc., it's you could take it at face value. But if it is sensitive reporting docs or raw data, then yes, that's where you have to use your discretion and be transparent with the clients, 100%.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point to make.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a conversation currently happening between marketers, Wendy.
I don't think it's something we necessarily consider, to be honest. And as I thought of it, that's why I thought I have to share this, because I think it should be a conversation starter and perhaps another IMM chat, because I think it's a biggie. And I know you can select a private chat on when you're doing a prompt, but how private is private? And yeah, I'd really like to know more about that.
Well, hopefully that conversation
it's made me sit back and think of it, actually. Yeah.
I think that'll be a good point to pick up on at the IMM Friday breakfast. And
good idea.
everyone that attends will have that discussion. But now, I'd just like to say I'm not against AI. I actually use it as well. It's just that because I do creative writing, I don't want it to change the style that I've developed over like a decade. And I believe I write in a certain style. And sometimes when I put in prompts, I get answers, and then I feel like, oh, this is better than my style. Should I incorporate it? And I kind of have to stop myself from doing so, because mine is really who I am. But what has just come to me is the question I'd like to put to you, Candice. I thought, when I think of AI, I think of digital marketing campaigns. Is AI good at creating traditional media campaigns, scripts for TV ads, out of home stuff?
Well, it depends on what you feed it and how well it knows your brand tone. So AI is as good as you want it to be. It's as good as you allow it to be. Sometimes I've been really lazy with my prompts and my brief, and it's given me a really lazy campaign.
Hmm.
Sometimes I've really been strategic with my brief, and it's given me the most incredible campaign. And maybe I've polished it here or there, but it really, really comes because what AI gives you is nothing new. It's what's been living out there in the world. It's nothing new. And if you think about it, research is research is research, whether you're going to the library and reading other authors' works, whether you are just Googling different sites, reading different blogs, it's all stuff that existed before you. So now it's how do you define in your mind what the goals are for your campaign, what the strategies to have some kind of outline for strategically what you want to achieve, understanding your target audience. You're always going to know the target audience better than the AI does, and
Hmm.
briefing the AI effectively. You're going to get a fantastic campaign in a matter of seconds because you did the work first. So you have to, and it
Exactly.
took me a long time to understand that. Hey, Wendy, it took me a long time to understand that. When AI first came onto the scene and everyone was using chats, I was like, oh, it gives you the biggest load of nonsense back. Like, what is this nonsense? I can't use that. And then I started to actually understand it better and go, hang on a second, Candice, you also still need to do some work. So I would
Yes.
sit down first and go, what do I want to achieve? What's the strategy? Who's the audience? What are my ideas? And then I would brief the AI with that. And then it would literally just take what I've given it and make it better or put it into a proper polished framework. So it's as good as you want it to be.
Um, do marketing professionals talk to each other about campaigns that have had a significant contribution from AI? I mean, are we able in this conversation to identify big campaigns where people have credited using AI to make it better? Okay,
You want me to take
Wendy,
that?
you can
You want
start,
to go?
whoever.
I can't think of one off the bat. If you give me a sec, I'll ask Casper.
Candice, go ahead
Um,
while we wait.
So there was a company called the Brave Group's Digital Experience Agency. Um, they did a campaign for Nedbank at the end of last year. It's an AI powered Nedbank campaign, which is called We're for Africa, and it was actually won awards. And what they did was they put a brief into the AI into one integrated environment. I'm not sure what AI tool they used, but one integrated environment that produced a full marketing campaign out of home, comm strategy, creative content, social posts, etc. All the assets, and this was all done within 12 days, and they achieved an 80% reduction in costs and
Yo,
generated about over 6.7 million impressions across their social media. So that campaign has always kind of been a great example of like, wow, that's what AI can do. And they're quite open about it and won awards for being able to use AI to an 80% reduction in costs.
what do you
12
think of that?
days. Fantastic award-winning campaign. So, and that's a big company, that's Nedbank. So yeah, I
Yeah,
think
you
we
see,
do.
that's the scary bit right there.
Mm.
That's the
yeah.
scary bit because it's not just about getting the cost down. It's the fact that marketing is a people-centered environment. You
But there
know,
was
But
people at every step of that process, Gavin. So someone had to still oversee that process. You cannot rely on the AI just to give you an award-winning campaign.
how do you get it down by 80%, the costs?
I suppose speed of time as well. Like what would take a production
reiteration.
house. Yeah, exactly. Plus all the equipment for production is
Those are
so
my guys. Yeah.
costly.
Those are the
Yeah,
the,
your
the
guys,
crew,
Kevin.
the crew that films. the lighting guys,
Yeah.
the sound guys,
And all the snacks.
and the animators.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on-set craft. Mhm.
That's it. And the meals, yeah.
What do you think,
Another
Wendy?
factor, to consider when it comes to AI in marketing, everything we're doing in a paid media space is driven by AI now. Your PMAX campaigns, your Meta campaigns, all those algorithms behind your TikTok campaigns, they're all AI enhanced. So they're serving content to humans based on the algorithm's perception of that human's behavior. Behind the scenes, AI has actually been around for a very long time in marketing. It's only recently that it's come to light in the creative space,
The
right?
generative AI.
Of AI, exactly. So it's not new to marketers in that sense, but again, it makes mistakes, but it also brings down the cost because your impressions are going to the right people. Hopefully the right people are clicking on your ads, but you also have to set it up correctly. You've also got to build your audiences correctly. So again, that I like to call it enabled content, enabled marketing, with the A being an AI. So it's enabled by AI. And I think that's the key for me. That's the key message here is if you let it go and do its own thing all by itself, trouble's coming back at you.
We're almost getting to the wrap, and maybe that's one of the points. I'd like to say that maybe you guys have convinced me otherwise, and I'm probably not having a conversation and instead prompting a machine. And maybe I'll name my AI after this and start talking to them. Wendy, could you tell me what do you think are two important points that the people who are watching this, graduates, undergrad students, marketing professionals, should keep in mind when they're considering using AI or using AI to either develop campaigns or conduct some research?
So for me, Gavin, I've thought about this. There's no doubt we have to get comfortable with it. So stop trying to hide that you're using it, but use it responsibly. Don't compromise on your ethics as a human. If it's not ethical in your normal human behavior, then it's not ethical in an AI space. And certainly don't let it compromise your own creativity or govern, even in your case, your voice. Don't lose yourself or your ability or your talent to the AI. Let it rather enable you.
That's a beautiful thing to say. Candice, what do you think are the important takeaways from this conversation that people could maybe write down on a piece of paper? I've learned that that's what people do with the IMM Friday Flash Talk. They'll take a few points, write it down with the highlighter, with the Koki, and then keep it next to their desk and say, okay, when I'm doing this, I have to remember that.
So I think in kind of tying in with what Wendy said there, because she said it so beautifully and succinctly, was if you can obviously not lose your creative voice and your creative agency, but rather utilize the AI to automate the mundane tasks for you, then it frees you up to do the fun stuff, right? So if you can just say, okay, these are the tasks that are just so time consuming. Surely AI can do that organizing for me, that research for me. Then I can do the fun, creative stuff where I can really bring my voice in and just do the polishing. So start to familiarize yourself with different tools, play around, and see what works for you, what's good with automating your tasks. I love transcription tools. So I do a lot of transcribing clients and interviews, transcribe interviews. So I play with a lot of transcription tools. So I've got a little list of things that, for that, I'm going to use that tool. For that, I'm going to use that tool, So find out what's going to make your life more effective. And then second of all, remember that work-life balance is so important. And at the end of the day, if you can, and I have an example of where it was a Saturday morning and I was with my kids. I have two little kids, and a client sent something through to me, and they had written something and it had to go off to media, and it wasn't quite in the shape it should be. It would have taken me 2 hours to sit there and edit it. I didn't need to change much, but it just needed a lot of little polishing around the edges and editing. It would have taken me a long time. And I would have lost those 2 hours with my kids. And it was a Saturday. And I relied on AI to help me. And we got it between myself and Kathy, we got it done in 30 minutes. And it was great. And I got to have my Saturday with my family. And that was the day I think I was completely convinced, where I'm like, you know what, I'm going to use this in a way that serves me, not a way that takes me over, but a way that serves me.
I love that. I also have kids, and maybe I should use that too. But I'll wait to see the feedback from the audience. Thank you so much, Kathy Burgess-Look and Wendy Monkley, for joining us on the IMM Friday Flash Talk. So to everyone who's watching at the moment, tell your AI about the IMM Friday Flash Talk. Hopefully they'll start referencing us in some of the answers that they give. But do share this conversation. It's been a pleasure, as it always is, to share some of the latest trends in the world of marketing and PR. And I know from this conversation that the people watching will know how to better use AI, and will be able to create better campaigns, not just through research, but through conversations and brief little bits, instead of long prompts. From myself, Govin Whittles, it's been a pleasure, and we'll see you next time.